Hello, my name is Andre.
I'm Hailey.
Hey, and today we're going to be talking to you about filters. So this is, as you're a new user on Echo coming in and want to learn more about how to set up filters, that's what we're going to do today. And so today I'm going to be playing the role of expert, and Hailey's going to pretend like she's never seen any of this before.
Yep.
Way to go. Filters, that probably doesn't even give you enough context to know what this is about yet, right?
Nope.
Okay, so let me start with just kind of what are we talking about. So each message that comes into Echo, it could just come in and like somebody's going to have to respond to it. That's kind of a way to do it. But what we've done is taken that next step, and we've been able to make Echo like detect what language is this first message coming in on, and then we've also made it set up where we can not only detect the language but look in the message for keywords or phrases, or maybe location data, and then route it to the appropriate team. So if you speak Spanish and you're on the Spanish team, then Echo could detect, oh, this is a language. This is the language is Spanish. This is a message that has this word, whatever the Spanish word is, and that should be routed over to Hailey and to her team. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today is we're going to set up filters. We're going to show you how to detect the language, how to choose which sources they have, and then we're going to have you be able to actually go in and set up the different ways you can route to the different teams or permission sets. So the end result, and what makes this super powerful, is once you have this set up, then, Hailey, if you've got a team that speaks multiple languages, or if you've got teams that are specialized in different skill sets, or maybe you just want to color code certain things, like this is really urgent or something like that, all of that can be done in filters. And then you can also run reporting on that. So we'll talk about that too, and we'll show you how you can get reports. So if you want to automate messages coming in and being routed to a particular team member, or if you want to have a kind of automatic classification of the different conversations you're having and run reporting on that, you're going to love what we're about to show you. So let me hop over on our screen here, and let me show you inside of Echo the system. So right now we're in admin. This is the filters area, and the way I've gotten to that is I just went into admin from the menu, and then I chose settings, and then I'm right here in the filters drop down. Makes sense so far?
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah, great. So you have a couple of things you can do. You could create just a completely new filter collection from start, and you do that by just clicking this and giving it a name. And so I just do that, and now I've got that this is a demo. Now, obviously, that doesn't do anything yet. The next thing I have to do is choose, edit it. And when I do, I have to choose, the sources that I'm going to use. So a source is something like an email or a Facebook page or a web form or, just any of the different what we call channels. That's a source that you would pick.
Okay. Can you choose multiple sources?
Yeah. So we could go in here and be like, hey, I want to see anything for this, anything that's this WhatsApp thing, maybe this guy over here, whatever these different things are, we can go in and click those, and you'll see them show up right here at the top. And you can also go back and edit that anytime and be like, actually, I'm just kidding. Definitely don't include the WhatsApp one, and take that out just as well. Okay, so that's sources. So that's the source of information coming in that it's going to read and look at. Okay, the next thing we have to do is indicate what languages we care about it detecting. So it's like, okay, since we're speaking English, maybe we want to detect English. And so we would choose English as an example and then add that language in that's going to show up down here. Maybe also we want to come in here and do Spanish. So we could come over here and pick Spanish from the list and add that one in as well. So right now the filters are set up where if web chat, this demo phone, maybe not the best example. Let's go ahead and remove that to make this make a little more sense. Obviously, we can detect, oh, well, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. So we can detect the demo phone is just the name of it. So this would be a phone number that people are texting in on. Okay, that works. Or these two different chats, the Echo Demo chat, the phone they could text in, or this web chat. So the first message that comes in, it's going to read it. Right now, it's going to detect, is it English or is it Spanish? Or other, a language it couldn't define. So once we've done that and said it's English, we can do some things right off the bat. The first thing we can do is we have what's called a catch-all, which just says, hey, if a message comes in and it's English, assign it to, just catch everything that's English and assign it to a particular team member. So maybe we want to send this to social media team, whatever. These are permission sets. These are your names that you've put in for your permission sets. If you don't know about permission sets, we have a whole other video you need to watch that details all the information out about permission sets. And so I would just save that and have that done. And right now what's going to happen is it's going to look at these. Is it English? If so, it's going to assign it to the social media team. Okay. But that's not super powerful. I mean, that may be good. So like a lot of ministries, like maybe our primary ministry is in English, but maybe we have 1 or 2 volunteers in Spanish that are helping us. That's probably where that makes sense, is like, you know what? I'm not going to take the time to designate everything. It's kind of like whatever happens, if it's in Spanish, send it over. Let's see. So I would send it over to my Spanish team. This one's called Spanish Test. And then it could just be that's all you do for filters for Spanish. But if we're primarily in this example an English team, then maybe we'll create some new filters. So to make a filter, we just click Add Filter, and then we give it a name. So maybe we want to do something like, maybe we want to call this one depression. And so we could go in here and say like this one's about depression. Now I went ahead and hit enter, but let me come back to it. And so right now it's not going to do anything. I've just given it a name. That's all I've done. So let's kind of walk through what each of these things are. They're collapsed by default just to save space. Let's start in the upper right. So the first thing I could do is label this. So maybe this is urgent. If somebody comes in and is talking about depression. And then under keywords, this is where we put in, it's detected it's English, but now it's going to read those words and see if any of them match these words. So like maybe we would type in depressed, sad, lonely, right? So we would put in different words or phrases. I'm really, I don't know, whatever it is, whatever it is they're going to say. Yeah, upset. Yeah, great. Fantastic. Thanks. So whatever that is, it's going to match that. You don't have to write the whole thing though. So it's just going to match each of the letters. So like instead of writing like depression, depressed, all of that, you could just write DEPRES in this example and just call it good. Now you may get some false positives. Maybe there's other words that start with those letters, but it's just going to look for, does this sequence of letters exist in a word? So in general, like you wouldn't probably put like, I'm really sad and lonely, and I think I'm depressed. Like you wouldn't do it this way, because what Echo is going to look for is this entire sentence like this, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of want to do less is more here. So, just kind of look for those. So that's why I kind of pulled out sad, lonely, depressed, and again, probably we could even just do it like this. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So then underneath that, it's just reminding us, hey, we're working in English, and then I have these other things I can do, and some of this depends on the source. So if the source that is coming to us can give us this information, then you can sort by it. So as an example, you may make a web form where people fill out information, and in that form, maybe you're using the Wufoo integration. Well, you could choose male or female, like that could be one of the choices that the person puts in when they go to the form. They could go in and write that in there, choose that from the drop-down list. So if they did that, then we could say like, okay, we only want females that have indicated they're sad and lonely, and maybe that then gets assigned to the female team and males assigned to the male team. If you're on Facebook, unfortunately, Facebook doesn't tell us their gender, so we don't know. So it's like we can't do extra sorting on that. And then under this web form source, if I had picked a up here, this top level source, if these sources were a web form, then inside that you could choose from the drop down. So right now this is basically only being used for email. So if email is one of the sources I added up here, then this is where I would choose that list of website URL forms that I've added in to email. That's where you would see that list.
Okay.
If you don't know what that means and you are setting up email, watch the video on how to configure and set up email, and then that will tell you how to create those different sources. So what's cool about this is if you do have this set up, is then you could say like, everybody who clicked on the yes or on the no page, or whatever your different pages are, then route them. If they said they're depressed and they came from this page that's like I'm superdepressed.com, then that's, maybe that gets routed to a different team. Okay, and then underneath that is just religions. These are all essentially free-form fields, which means we're pulling this from the form they created. That you create as a user that what we call the seeker has filled out. Okay, so Facebook's not going to have this form data, but if you have a Wufoo integration that you've done, or you've created your own integration with Echo, and you're asking these questions, this is where you would put this information in.
Okay.
All right.
Do you have to fill out every one, or is it at your discretion?
Yeah, at your discretion. So, and by default, we kind of just keep them closed up. Most cases, it falls into two categories. Either the user doesn't care about mapping some of this stuff, or they're using Facebook and they really wish they could. So that's kind of our two scenarios. So we're almost done, but we're not done yet. So we've given it a name. This is a name that'll help in reporting. It'll also show up in the conversation. So when I, as an Echo user, claim it, I will see this name as well. And then we've given it a color coding and a urgent label. We've given it these different words and phrases. Again, this is a bad example, so I'm going to delete it. That's a bad example. And then, but we haven't assigned it to a team yet. So this is like a critical step of once you've done this, want to make sure you assign it to a team. And so let's assign this one to Daniel's best permission set, sure. And so whatever your team is, doesn't have to be one. You could go in and put 2 different team members. Whatever different permission sets you've created, you can assign that to. Okay?
Okay.
So that's what that looks like when it's kind of all finished. So now let's see how we would know if this would work. If someone came in from a chat or texted in from this number or chatted on this page, and they used depress or upset, this also probably is not good, right? So this should probably, instead of saying that, it should probably just say upset. Because we really don't care what they said before or after. It's just like the more minimal you can make it, the better. Technically, because I have depressed and depressed, I really don't need that. I can just close that out, and now we can get depressed, depression, whatever other depressed words you can have. This is sad. And we don't have anything else selected, and it's going to assign it to these team members.
Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of like at its most basic level how you create a filter. So is this feeling like this is making sense to you?
Yeah, it feels great. So I get to name my filter and choose small words that will be best, but how can I test all of it?
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. So let me hop back over here. So I'll show you guys, like, and Hailey as well, how do we test this? So we have a test filter option. We can hop in here and click test filter. Oh man, we're cheating. We already have one ready to go here. So here's some text. I already just tested this just a second ago. So this is a test of being depressed. So when I do that and I test that, it's going to show us like, hey, it detected it was English. It went for the filter depression, and it's going to assign it to these different groups. So here is where we could go in and put these different phrases like hola, como estás, right? Especially easy for me to write. So if I go in and do that, then the system's going to be like, hey, I think that was Spanish. And remember, we haven't set up any other filters. So it's just going to go to the catch-all and assign it to the Spanish team.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here's where we can go in and type those words or phrases. I'm really sad. Easy for me to type. I'm really sad. I think I have depression, right? So like we just wrote D-E-P-R-E-S, but we also have the word sad, I think, in there too. So let's try that. So it's going to detect, okay, that's English, and that's the filter depression. And so it's going to go to these different groups based off of that. So similarly, we could go in and if I had configured like they're from a specific postal code or a religion or country or state or city, any of that information, or gender, if I had put that into the filter, then I can replicate that here and push the test button to make sure it works. Now, there's a big deal that we haven't talked about yet, which is what happens if I create, obviously you're not going to have just one. So what happens if I create more than one? So I think I actually have another one of these that we can check here. So I'm going to go back to settings, go to filters, and maybe, let's see, demo collection. Let's see if I have something already done. I do. So here I've made a few additional things. Okay, so I have this first one. It's labeled emergency. That's the name I gave it. But it's got this also label inside the system of emergency, which means it's red. So when it comes into Echo, it's going to have this red, like, pay attention to this. This is important. And so here it's including words like suicide and kill myself. Obviously, there's a lot of different words and phrases that you could consider doing in that. Maybe you didn't want to even you could also have done that by just having kill. I know this is all terrible to talk about. And then you could assign it to the team. So one of the things that some people do is they'll assign it to the team that it would have been assigned to anyway, but now it just has this label. So now it's just like still going to the same team, but it's labeled like this is emergency, pay attention to this right away. Okay, but what do we do when we have multiples? So like this one is called the next filter, and it has the urgent word in it, right? Okay, so how's this going to work? Well, Echo works like, it's kind of like gravity. So imagine like you're putting a marble in and it's going to kind of work its way down, or you're pouring liquid in and it's going to work its way down. So if my message is in English, right? So Echo is going to detect it's English, and then it's going to look at this one first. So if I say everything is great, but I want to talk about Islam, I have a friend who committed suicide, okay, and it's really sad. So if they had said all those things, even though they were really wanting to talk about Islam, because they included the word suicide, Echo's going to always stop at the first filter it hits that has that word or phrase or whatever the criteria. It doesn't even by the way, you don't have to have even a keyword. It could be you're doing it just based off of something else inside here. Okay, so how does this actively work? Well, let's look at this example of this one has the religion and it has the word Islam in it. So if we come up and test this and I write in English, I want to talk about Islam, right? And we just go and test that. Then we can see that that's English, and it's going to go to the religion filter, which is what that one was called.
Okay.
But if I go in and still have that, but then I want to also talk about suicide, what do you think is going to happen?
It's going to go to the emergency filter.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So yeah, that's right. And the reason it's going to go to that is because it came in, and because I had the word suicide, even though I said like, I could have written a much better sentence. Like, the only thing I really want to talk about is Islam, but I want to spend 1 second talking about, something else. And if it's above that, then that wins. So what do? Do you have to think this all out ahead of time before you build them? No. See these you can grab one of these little guys and just move this around. So now, if this Islam, as an example, is at the top, if I come in here and say, I want to talk about Islam, I also want to talk about suicide, and I test this, what's going to happen now that I've moved Islam to the top?
It's going to go to the religion filter.
Yeah, so when I test that, see, now it's going to go to the religion filter because the marble went in, I guess, or the liquid went in, and it stopped right there. No reason for it to continue pouring down. So the way filters work, they start at the top, they're gravity fed, and they just stop as soon as the first one, starting from the top, meets the word, phrase, or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it doesn't even have a keyword, right? So we don't have to have keywords. It could be we have this, and instead we have a postal code, or maybe we just say anything that's male. It doesn't matter what they've written. Then send it to that team. Okay? So it doesn't have to be a word or phrase. It's just kind of the easiest thing to demonstrate. It makes the most sense. So what happens if it's detected in English and it doesn't have any of these words or other criteria, we end here at catch-all. So catch-all is kind of like, all it can tell you for sure is that it feels pretty confident it's in English. So it's kind of like everything else that wasn't a filter, who should that go to now?
Okay.
And so then we would just, again, assign our permission set here. Okay? And so similarly in Spanish, like, how are you? ¿Cómo estás? is the word that I've got in here. And so I could come in here and erase this and type better. Man, obviously my Spanish is not amazing. And then test that. And so that detected it was Spanish. And then that went to the how are you filter. And then this is who's going to get that. So critical thing, got to make sure every permission set has been assigned to, at least a permission set has been assigned to every filter that you create. Otherwise, you've just organized all that stuff, but it's not actually going to show an echo.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does.
Oh, man, this is great. Okay, so let's now just do a kind of a big summary here. At the top, this is where we choose our sources. They can be one or more. We can then add languages to this. So we can go in and just pick a new language from the list. I think we have over 100 languages that we can detect. And once you find the language that you want, you can just add that language in. You can, I think, rearrange these. No, okay, that's just a design thing to let you know to twirl it down. So, but you can design that, and then inside here you can rearrange these. The higher something up, the more it's going to hit first, right? So if this is the most important thing, so essentially it's kind of like assign the most important things from your perspective, like no matter what. So like a key example, I mean, there's a reason we have this suicide one, which is terrible, but a lot of conversations come into Echo, and that's what they're talking about. Obviously, from our perspective and many ministries' perspective, probably just everyone's perspective, but that's going to kind of trump all the other kinds of things they may want to talk about. It's like, well, let's talk about the value of you in your life first, and then inside that. But your ministry may be talking about something totally different. That's just not a topic that comes up. But whatever you're most like, no matter what, if they talk about this, that definitely gets priority. That would go at the top. And the things that are kind of lesser priority, you get organized down below. And it may be the kind of thing where you're kind of always rearranging these a little bit and kind of getting them to where they need to be. Add a filter, you just add that button there, and always save. And then just remember, you can always come in here and test. And you would fill this out exactly like you would test it, and then just push the test button and see your answers there. Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah, there's a lot of words. So thanks for watching this. Hopefully that gave you kind of a big overview around filters. You can have more than one filter collection, and this is the one thing I didn't talk about. And so this is kind of more advanced. So if like I've already kind of solved the way you would want to use filters, then have a nice day. If you want to talk just a little longer, hang around. So we did have the ability to choose multiple filter collections. And so the reason we do that is it could be for collection number 1 for this set of Facebook pages or chats or emails or whatever. They're going to deal with these kinds of topics in this sort of way, where on number 2, they may also say some of those same words or phrases, but it may mean something different, or maybe it needs to be assigned to a completely different team. Mm-hmm. That's when you would create those. So maybe you have like Team A, they're over here doing their thing, and Team B, well, because we've already detected these things and assigned them, it may not work to also have that same grouping together. So you can break them apart and say, well, if it's any of these sources, then assign it over here to Team B. So that's why we have those filter collections at the top level. So you can really go in and do almost anything with this. The last thing we wanted to show you is going to be probably in a separate video from this one, but it's going to talk about reporting and filtering. So as you watch this, hopefully that's been useful for you. And then in the next video, we'll show you how do you report and show some of this on the reporting side.